Dumelang Mangwanani Mwalelepo Vukenjani Kaipas Vanabe Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You're joined by Ashwin Berry and Glenora Shipura.
Good morning, Ashwin.
Good morning, Glenora.
Now, today is Umbrella Day. Everyone is familiar with the sight of an umbrella. They are present whether you live in the hottest of climates or the coldest. They are there to keep the rain off on a blustery day and there to protect you from sunburn on a warm and sunny day. There's simply no day that isn't a perfect umbrella day. Let's have a look at this video on umbrellas.
Now, when I'm looking at you, all I see is a melody arranged in triplet form, sung so soft. And so it seems, even if I lose the moment or the tune, I'll think about you singing to me. La 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 la, la 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 la.
Today is Thursday, the 10th of February, and these are your top stories. Strange disease with vomiting and diarrhea symptoms kills 20 in a village in Uganda. A strange disease in Uganda has killed at least 20 people in Kasasa sub-county, Kyotera district, leaving authorities and residents worried for their lives. The residents in Kijojo A and Kijojo B have started migrating to other areas over fears they could contract the disease that is yet to be identified by the Ministry of Health. Kyotera District Chairperson Patrick Kintu Kisekulo said they were waiting for results from the Ministry of Health to determine what the disease is and how it has killed residents. Symptoms of the disease include vomiting, diarrhea, headache, and bleeding, with death reported after 2 to 3 days. According to Kasasa Sub-County Chairperson Dennis Muyunga, some residents linked the deaths to witchcraft, while others claimed it could have been a result of a caterpillar present in coffee plantations in the region. 5 residents were reported to have got similar symptoms during the last week and were being treated by traditional healers.
Now, in our next story, immigrants arrest 41 foreigners for illegal entry. The Department of Immigration and Citizenship Service in the northern region has arrested 30 Ethiopians, 10 Pakistanis, and 1 Bangladeshi national for entering Malawi illegally. The suspects were arrested yesterday around Enokoweni area in Mitsibitsi district while hiding under a plastic cover at the back of a white 2-tonner lorry. According to Francis Shitumbuli, public relations officer for the Northern Immigration Office, all the 30 Ethiopian nationals did not have passports, while the Bangladeshi national and 10 Pakistani nationals had passports, but without entry stamp for Malawi, as well as a visa to enter into the country. The 2-ton lorry, which was used to ferry the suspected illegal immigrants, has been impounded, and the driver of the vehicle is currently on the run.
Now, Indonesia starts testing homegrown COVID vaccine on humans. Indonesia has begun testing a homegrown COVID-19 vaccine on humans after getting the green light from the drug regulator as the country faces a rising wave of cases. Research on the Merah Putih vaccine, named after the colors of the Indonesian national flag, is led by Airlangga University and Biotis Pharmaceutical Indonesia. The project has suffered delays since starting in 2020, but authorities are now hoping to authorize its use by the middle of 2022 if the trials are successful. The first and second phases of the clinical trials will involve 90 and 405 adult volunteers respectively. Vaccination rollout is also relatively slow, with about 48% of the population being vaccinated with 2 jabs and only 5 million with a booster shot. Indonesia has approved 13 vaccines and boosters, but has primarily used the Chinese-made jabs and has struggled to procure enough doses for its population of more than 270 million people.
Now, in our next story, UN judge orders 8 Rwandans tried for genocide to be sent to Tanzania. A United Nations judge has ordered the 8 former members of the Hutu government in power in Rwanda during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsis to be sent to Tanzania from Niger, which refused to keep hosting them. Judge Joseph Chiwondo Masanche ordered for all necessary measures to be taken immediately to send the 8 to Tanzania until they could be transferred somewhere else. The judge also ordered Niger, which has been hosting the Rwandans since 5 December, under an agreement concluded with the UN to provide all necessary assistance in order to execute the terms of this decision. 4 of the 8 Rwandans were acquitted by the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, an international court established by the UN to judge those accused of being responsible for the genocide.
Now, the Libyan parliament is set to name a new prime minister amid signs of power struggle. Libya's parliament is set to name a new prime minister today to head the transitional government, which raises concerns over the possibility of a new power struggle. The effort to replace interim prime minister Abdul Hamid Deiba comes after the date for Libya's first presidential election, scheduled for last year, came and went during his watch. Lawmakers argue that the mandate of Deiba's government ended when the presidential election was supposed to happen. Now, the postponement dealt a major blow to international efforts to end a decade of chaos in the oil-rich Mediterranean nation. Deiba, however, said he will not hand over power, a position that could lead to a flare-up of conflicts between rival factions in the deeply divided nation. He warned that naming a new prime minister would lead the country back to division and chaos after nearly 2 years of relative calm. All right, this is Still Africa. Good morning. More news after the break.
Now, thank you for staying with Africa Good Morning. In our next story, Maxim Ghana agrees to $6 million fine over truck blast that killed 13. The Spanish company Maxim Ghana Limited, in charge of a truck that exploded and killed 13 people at Apitse in the western region of Ghana, has been fined $6 million for regulatory breaches regarding the manufacture, storage, and transportation of explosives for mining and other civil works. In a press statement signed by the Lands Minister Samuel Abojinapo, the breaches were identified by a 3-member committee set up by the government to investigate the explosion that occurred at Apitse. The Land Minister has also set out 14 conditions to be met by the company before restoring their operating permit. The measures include a ban on ammonium nitrate and fuel oil transportation on a public road to a mine or civil work site unless expressly permitted by the Chief Inspector of Mines. Other measures include explosives being guarded by 2 escort vehicles, one in front and one at the back, both with sirens to warn people about the explosives.
Now, in Nigeria, there are calls for ritual killings to be declared a state of emergency. The House of Representatives on Wednesday said a state of emergency on ritual killings in the country should be declared by the federal government. The lawmakers also called for a campaign against the menace, saying the effort of parents, schools, religious leaders, and the media is needed. A motion sponsored by Deputy Minority Leader of the House, Toby Okechukwu, lamented that ritual killings have taken a new dimension in recent times. According to him, there has been an upsurge of reported ritual killings, with increasing cases of abductions and missing persons in different parts of the country, which in most cases the culprits also rape, maim, kill, and obtain sensitive body parts of unsuspecting victims for rituals. The motion was unanimously adopted by the House, which called on the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, to take urgent steps to increase surveillance and intelligence gathering with a view to apprehend and prosecute all perpetrators of ritual killings in Nigeria.
Now that's very sad. Moving on, the law on femicide called to be strengthened. The president of the Gender Committee of the National Assembly, Christelle Vawanga, called for the strengthening of the law on femicides in the Democratic Republic of Congo. She made this statement while reaching to the subject of the cases of women killed by their partners during the month of January, when the 16 days of activism against sexual and gender-based violence was held in Kinshasa in November last year. Ms. Vawanga mentioned the need to develop firm coercive measures at the level of Minister of Gender to respond to marital and domestic violence, given that there is not yet the specific legal framework to mitigate this violence in the DRC.
Now, Sudanese women's rights campaigner Amira Osman has been freed. After a 2-week detention, Sudanese activist Amira Osman was reportedly released on Sunday. Amira Osman, the prominent civil society leader who was reportedly freed on Sunday, had been kept incommunicado since January 22, 2022. On that Saturday evening, armed men wearing civilian clothes stormed her house before imprisoning her in the women's prison of Omdurman. It is her family who confirmed her arrest. The arrest sparked condemnation from the United Nations mission in Sudan, which said it was outraged, citing a pattern of violence against women's rights activists. Amira Osman campaigned for women's rights in Sudan during the rule of former President Omar al-Bashir. More recently, she has taken part in a string of demonstrations taking place in Sudan to demand the oust of military rule. Since General al-Burhan's power grab in October last year, activists denounced a heavy-handed crackdown by the military.
Now, in our next story, over 218 million COVID-19 vaccinations administered across Africa. As of February, confirmed cases of COVID-19 from 55 African countries reached to 11,004,889, while over 218,397,037 vaccinations have been administered across the continent. Reported deaths in Africa reached to 9,946,000. And in South Africa has reported the most cases, standing out at nearly 4 million. The numbers are compiled by the Center for Systems Science and Engineering at Johns Hopkins University, using statistics from the World Health Organization and other international institutions, as well as the national and regional public health departments.
Well, that brings us to the end of our top stories. After the break, we'll be talking to geologist and environmentalist Jan Ackert. Stick around for that conversation.
Swiping or tapping your FNB Visa card is the safest, easiest, most rewarding way to transact. Because if you swipe your FNB Visa debit or credit card 3 times a month, you'll automatically be entered into the draw to win your share of a mammoth 250,000 Namibian dollars. Competition ends 15 February 2022. T's, C's and rules apply. Switch to FNB, Bank of the Changeables.
Now, no stranger to Africa, good morning. Jan Ackert is a qualified geologist as well as environmentalist who has expressed that he is set against all exploration in the biodiverse Kavango regions. Now, Jan was previously involved as opponent of the search for oil in the Great Karoo and has in the meantime also been closely involved with the legal actions taken that successfully stopped the seismic assessment along the wild coast of South Africa and now also along the west coast of the Cape, reaching up to the border of Namibia. Welcome, Jan. How are you? It's good to have you back.
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me once again. It's nice to be back.
Right. Now, can you give us a concise summary of what regions we are talking of and what the threat to nature and environment entails?
Yes, certainly. If we look at the offshore activities, it extends from on the west coast of Africa, literally all the way from Nigeria down through DRC, Angola. And as you've obviously heard in the news very recently, much fanfare has been made about Shell's recent exploration and activities and successes. And now we have the west coast in South Africa. And going up the east coast of Africa, we had the wild coast going wild, should I say, now just before December, and it continues all the way up to Tanzania and Kenya. That's just offshore, and then we have onshore. Well, we certainly know what's happening in Kavango. There's activities going on in Zambia and the DRC, certainly in the Zambezi Valley and down into Mozambique. And so the oil and gas exploration are prolific right across Africa, onshore and offshore at the moment.
Thank you so much for that. Explain to our viewers how and why you got involved in this legal action that stopped the seismic assessment in their shoes.
Well, you know, I'm not going to deny I am strongly opposed to this whole concept of further oil and gas activity, exploration activity. And so I have been for many years from the early anti-fracking campaign here in South Africa. But it's not because I'm just a naive greenie. I see enormous environmental and social impact stemming from oil and gas activities, not just here in Africa, but there's legacies from right across the planet. But here in Africa in particular, it almost is as if these companies can come to Africa and do as they please with very light statutory limitations, which is most unfortunate. So they come along, as we've seen with Recon Africa pushing their limits. We've seen it with Shell off the South African East Coast, and now with Searcher going ahead with very, very scant environmental impact assessments without any regard for the local communities. And I think that is really what has been the success of our campaign, and will hopefully continue to be the success of our campaign, are that the communities are becoming involved, and they are seeing the direct implications on their livelihoods, their social structures, and their lifestyles. So I don't have any doubt that similar campaigns can be adopted in countries such as Namibia and elsewhere in Africa. It is a matter of a groundswell of people from ground level up, and not waiting for the government to take appropriate action.
All right. Yeah, actually, Akert, I was going to ask you what the outcome is so far and if it's final. I feel you touched a bit on that. And, I would like you to also talk a bit about how activists and environmentalists can take action. But just after that, talk about if you were an advisor to the companies concerned, what would you personally propose to them?
Well, I'll tell them very simply in Afrikaans, vat jou goed en trek verder, which basically means take your goods and go. We don't want you here, we don't need you here. The world order is changing rapidly, and the use of fossil fuels, we know our whole climate change story. We know that we are on the cusp. We're not even on the cusp. We already are suffering the consequences of climate change. We've just seen what happened in Madagascar just the other day, and we see wildfires in Australia, Northern America. We see unprecedented heating of our polar regions. So the simple solution is take your stuff and go. I'm not a stupid person. I know that these things will take a while to work out of the system. They're going to take decades to work out of the system. But meanwhile, we have to focus on alternatives. And that is where we cannot continue looking for oil and gas when there are alternatives, viable alternatives available. That's what we have to be going for. So basically, take your stuff and go. We don't want you here. That's what I would say.
All right. Thank you for your very strong, but of course experienced and well-researched opinion. Thank you for joining us on Africa Good Morning and for disseminating that important information, Mr. Akert.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me once again. Have a good day.
All right. We shall have a good day indeed. Stick around, because after the break, we take a trip to what they call Zimbabwe, what you might know as Zimbabwe.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, welcome to another exciting edition.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning. Now we're crossing over to Harare, Zimbabwe, speaking to Talent Gore. Talent?
Good morning, Glenora. Good morning, Ashray. And how are you doing this morning?
I'm good. So,
Okay,
Talent,
so
please tell us more about the civil servants and teachers that have been awarded a lucrative package that includes a 20% increment.
Well, so President Emerson Mnangagwa has directed that civil servants be given 20% salary increase plus $100 beginning next month, and other non-monetary benefits such as paying tuition fees for their children. The latest offer, announced Tuesday evening by Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube, comes after teachers refused to report for duty on Monday when schools reopened for the first term, citing incapacitation. Finance Minister who made the announcement said that the president had directed that there should be a 20% increment in their salary, and that the civil servants should be given $100 hard cash every month. And also, he said that the president has said that teaching families, their children are now supposed to be they're now supposed to go to school, and the government will be the one who will be paying for their school fees. They also say that now teachers, they can actually import their cars and export their cars duty free from other countries. So they say that this will go on for a long time. So the teachers are saying that the increment is not enough. They want their salaries to be pegged at 540 United States dollars.
It's all about the money. That is an interesting way to mitigate that situation. Now, in your next story, Botswana has jailed 5 Zimbabweans for illegal entry. Please get into that.
So 5 Zimbabwean border jumpers accused of illegally panning for gold in Francistown, Botswana, have been acquitted of the charge due to lack of evidence. However, the court slapped them with a 1-year jail term for illegally entering the country. The court held that the Botswana Defence Forces arrested the 5 on November 15 last year while they were allegedly panning for gold at Old Matsilongwe mine. They were then handed over to the police, who then found out that they'd actually entered into Botswana illegally. They came into the country through the Ramokhwebana border post without documents. So the 5 will be in jail for a year.
Thank you so much, Talent. Now, in your next story, a Zimbabwean woman dumps 695 grams of cocaine to an Indian at Harare Lodge. Please tell us more.
So police in Harare are investigating a case in which a Zimbabwean woman left 695 grams of cocaine worth over 6 million Zimbabwean dollars to an Indian. Apparently, it is alleged that the woman wanted the Indian to transport the cocaine to India on her behalf. So when the Indian man found out that the bag that was left in his custody contained cocaine, he then dumped the bag in the lodge and left for India. So when the attendants at the lodges then went into the room and they found the bag. They went through the bag and they discovered that there was cocaine, and they made a report to the police. So at the moment, the police are still trying to figure out who the woman was, and they're doing investigation to get to the bottom of the matter.
All right, interesting developments. We certainly look forward to an update on that story. Thank you very much, Talent, for bringing us the news from Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much for having me.
It is always good having talent on Africa. Good morning. Something else that is always good to have is good weather. Let's check out the forecast up next. Welcome back. Now, as we continue to decentralize African news for you, let's take a trip to Botswana and have a chat with Masego Mohwasa. Good morning, Masego. How are you?
Good morning to you in studio and good morning, Africa. It's lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you here. Now, public servant salary is to be negotiated. Get into that and your stories, please, Masego.
Yes, this week the Botswana budget speech by Peggy Serame, Minister of Finance and Economic Development, delivered to the National Assembly on the 7th of February 2022. The minister sought to introduce policy and fiscal reforms urgently needed in the economy, while at the same time possibly increasing support to those who need it the most. Government is proposing to reduce the civil service wage bill and cut support to parastatals and councils as a way of narrowing the budget deficit, which is estimated to reach 6.98 billion in the 2022-2023 financial year. However, while most are worried, government assures unions public salary negotiations will continue as planned. The Botswana Government Workers Union, Botswana Doctors Union, and Trainers and Allied Workers Union say government has assured them that the public service salary and conditions of service negotiations for the financial 2022-2023 will proceed as planned.
All right. Now, local farmers are happy because the sale of live cattle grosses over $1 billion. Yeah, that's some expensive beef. Tell us about it.
Yes, as you know, Botswana is the land. So last year was a joyous time for farmers as the value of live cattle they exported reached close to $1 billion pula. From years under the BMC monopoly, the producers are enjoying greater freedom and they want even more. The tension between cattle producers and the Botswana Meat Commission revolves generally around the prices offered by the meat parastatal to the farmers and the commission takes to settle and the time commission takes to settle payments. However, farmers over the years have been most by the monopoly BMC enjoys in being the sole exporter of beef in the country. This monopoly meant the BMC is not just the single biggest buyer of cattle, but dictates prices and terms it extends to farmers. Farmers and the BMC have haggled for years over what export parity pricing means, the quality of stock delivered, and the terms the parastatal has imposed on producers. In 2021, the first full year available for live cattle export, values sold hit 787 million by November. Late last year, President Mokgweetsi Masisi said live cattle exports would continue for the next 2 years, subject to periodic reviews.
Thank you so much. Now, in your next story, individualism in opposition threatens the umbrella for democratic change unity.
Yes, this has been a problem. Yes, this has been a problem for the Umbrella for Democratic Change, pardon, for a couple of years. Over the past 2 elections, it has been an issue because the coalition seems to struggle to keep it together. The spokesperson of the Umbrella for Democratic Change, Moeti Mohasa, has revealed that the coalition will still carry on with its National Executive Committee, regardless of the fact that one of the parties in the coalition, the BPF, does not seem committed. Mohasa said the retreat is intended to foster unity and connectedness following the acrimonious relationship that developed, especially between the Botswana Congress Party and the Botswana National Front. Tensions had out of control between supporters of the two parties on social media and other platforms. Some supporters of the BCP and BNF even traded insults over the former's insistence that an elective Congress should be held in order to afford members of the coalition an opportunity to choose the president of the UDC. Now, over the past elections, people were worried about the current leader of the UDC, who is Duma Boko, as some preferred a more humble and more polite, so to speak, Dumelang Saleshando. Now, we wait to see what will be the result of this Congress.
Seems like there are holes in that umbrella. Thank you very much, Masego, for bringing us the news stories from Botswana.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for having me.
Hey, you can still say us. You are representing your people after all. Thank you very much. It's always good to
That
have you
is
on
true.
Africa Good Morning. All right, lovely. We were just chatting to Maseko Mokwasa, getting the news straight from Botswana. Stick around. Economic news after the break.
Choose your flex package with Paratus today. Sign up for ultra-fast fiber with the convenience of mobile LTE. That's 2 products in 1 bundle. It's new, it's 1 bill, and you can stay connected in more than 1 location.
For more information, visit paratus.africa/NA.
Always prepared. Paratus.
This is still Africa. Good morning. Let's get straight into your economic news stories. Kenya, lack of funding prevents exploitation of Lotikipi Aquifer. Kenya's Minister of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, Cecily Kariuki, announced the abandonment of the Lotikipi Aquifer desalination project in Turkana County. The decision was based on a lack of funding. The populations of Turkana County, already on the verge of collapse due to drought, saw a solution with the desalination of water from the Lotikipi Aquifer, a project that will finally not come to fruition. In October 2019, the Kenyan government was nevertheless in talks with the Spanish company Alma Water for the construction of a desalination plant in the village of Nanama. The emissary of this news is the Kenyan Minister of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, Cecily Kariuki. In a recent statement, the authority justifies the decision on the basis of the high cost of desalination, averaging 50 million Kenyan shillings, which is more than $440,000 per month in electricity bills alone. Construction of the plant itself was expected to cost between 5 and 10 billion Kenyan shillings.
Now, in our next story, Angola among the countries that earn the most due to the bet on digital capacity. Angola is included in the most recent report on the 50 main emerging markets in the world, listed by the 2022 Agility Index. The index, now in its 13th year, ranks countries in terms of global competitiveness based on logistical strength, business conditions, and for the first time, digital capability, all factors that make them attractive to providers of logistics, freight services, air and sea carriers, distributors and investors. The index includes a survey of 756 supply chain industry professionals. Major African economies that have struggled to improve infrastructure, business conditions, and global competitiveness generally perform better than other emerging markets in areas measuring digital skills and sustainability. This is one of the findings of the 2022 Emerging Logistics Market Agility Index, the ranking of the world's top 50 emerging markets. Kenya ranks 28th overall, but 17th for digital capability. South Africa 24 overall, and is 24 in digital capability, as is Ghana, which ranks 32nd globally and 23rd in digital capability.
In our next story, recovery on track. Bank of Tanzania report shows Tanzania's economy is on the right path towards recovery from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, with the latest data showing growth across several parameters. From a rebound in credit extended to the private sector to a rise in earnings from exports and tourism, latest Bank of Tanzania statistics showed that the worst could almost be over. Now, the recovery of the private sector credit was largely attributed to sustained accommodative monetary policy and improving business conditions from adverse impacts of COVID-19 pandemic, BOT says in the report. Trade recorded the largest rise in credit from commercial banks thanks to the easing of COVID-19 related restrictions and BOT's liquidity stimulation policies. Other areas that got a sizable share of credit extended to the private private sector were manufacturing, mining, and personal activities, which were mainly small and medium-scale undertakings.
In our next story, GIPF invests millions at Tamariskia. The government institution's pension fund has invested over 20 million Namibian dollars in the Tamariskia housing development at Swakopmund. According to a statement released by the GIPF yesterday, several stakeholders were involved in the process of the development, such as the Biocop Group, and through the Coningston Capital Investment Property Fund. The development has over 120 housing units worth between 800,000 and 1.5 million Namibian dollars in Extension 3. According to the GIPF, the majority of the housing units have thus far been brought by individuals between the ages of 28 and 38 in the public sector. GIPF Chief Executive David Nuyoma yesterday said the fund was proud to be a pioneer of the concept in Namibia. It should also be noted that even though our unlisted investment objectives are developmental in nature, the protection and growth of our assets remain top priority, he said. Nuyoma further said in line with Regulation 13 of the Pension Funds Act, pension funds are required to hold a minimum of 45% of their investment in Namibian assets with a maximum of 3.5% in unlisted investments. Through this legislation, pension funds are encouraged to invest in the domestic market and to ensure that Namibian savings are utilized to stimulate local development, he said.
Now, I've been watching the Winter Olympics, Glenora, and for me, I have to say the Olympics part, it starts at just stepping into the snow. Like, just being there, you're a hero to me. So we'll be talking about Winter Olympics and more in our sports after your economic indicators.
Thank you so much for staying with Africa Good Morning. Now, moving on to sports news, Africa Good Morning's Cape Town-based correspondent, Ari Hougaard, gives us an update on the ongoing Winter Olympics in Beijing and more. Stay with us to find out who the winner of the cross-country skiing sprint final, some tennis news, and how Everton got the better of Newcastle.
Good day, everyone. It's time to talk international sport, and we start again with the Winter Olympics currently taking place in Beijing, China. It's the 24th Winter Olympics. And we start off with cross-country skiing. It was the sprint final, and we start off with the women's result. And there it was Jonna Sandling from Sweden. She won. She's 27 years old, and that was her first gold medal. And she was quite a distance in front of a fellow countryman, also from Sweden. That is Maja Dahlqvist. She was 2.8 seconds ahead of Dahlqvist when Sandling won. So gold medal in the cross-country skiing women's sprint went to Jonna Sandling of Sweden. And we stay with the cross-country skiing, the sprint final. This time it's the men's result. It was Johannes Klebo of Norway that was the winner. He was just in front of Federico Pellegrini of Italy. The difference there between first and second was just 26 hundredths of a second, and a great achievement from Johannes Klebo. He was the winner in 2018. He won the gold medal in South Korea, and interestingly enough, Federico Pellegrini of Italy was also second in South Korea. Again, the same result this time around. And a great result for Johannes Klebo. He had COVID-19 just before the Olympic Games. He was cleared to participate. His coach had to stay at home, but still Johannes Klebo was strong enough, and he won gold in the cross-country men's skiing sprint final. Let's continue with some tennis news, and staying in China, it is related to the Chinese women's tennis player Peng Shuai, and at least it seems like she's safe at the moment. There was concerns for the past few months of her safety. She made statements on internet, on posts on the internet, that she was forced into a relationship with a former Chinese party leader, and that was concerned that she was all of a sudden quiet and what happened to her. It was also the Women's Tennis Association that made a big statement a month ago that said they cancel all tournaments that was going to take place in China. The first one to know about the safety of this player. So Peng Shuai, she made contact with an interview with L'Equipe magazine, that is the publication in France, and there she said it was a huge misunderstanding, the earlier post, and she claimed that everything is fine at the moment. The tennis world is still a bit skeptic, so hopefully Peng Shuai of China is safe. And staying with tennis, there's two tournaments taking place in the men's circuit at the moment, one in the Netherlands and one in the USA. In the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, it is the ABN AMRO World Tournament. It is part of the ATP 500 series, and the news from the tournament is that Stefanos Tsitsipas, he beat Alejandro Furcano of Spain, and that was a tight game. He beat him by 7-5, 6-7 and 6-4. That was in the round of 32. And also in the USA, in the Dallas Open, that's the ATP 250 tournament, there South African Kevin Anderson had a good win. He beat Sam Querrey of America, and the score in that game was 6-4, 6-4 in favor of Kevin Anderson. And to conclude today's international sport, let's look at some football news, some soccer news. There were some midweek games in the English Premier League. There was a good win for Newcastle, and there was still a challenge for Manchester United. They continue to battle at the moment. They again had a draw. But let's start with the Newcastle game. It was Newcastle that beat Everton, and they beat them by 3-1. That was at home, and that means that Newcastle is out of the bottom three on the English Premier League list. The bottom three at the moment is Norwich, Watford and Burnley. It is the same Burnley that played against Manchester United, and the result at Burnley was 1-all. So not a good result for Manchester United. That means they fall away out of the top four on the English Premier League at the moment. They're in the fifth position. They've got 39 points after 23 games, and in fourth position at the moment is West Ham with 24 games played, and they've got 40 points. Other midweek game that was played was West Ham United, and they beat Watford. The score there was 1-0. So with that, I conclude the international sport news. I hope everybody's enjoying the Winter Olympics in Beijing in China. Till we talk again tomorrow, have a great day. Goodbye.
Thank you for staying with Africa. Good morning from 7 a.m. as we have been bringing you the pertinent news on the African continent and beyond. Now, if you perhaps missed our top stories at the top of the hour, worry not. Here are some of the highlights. Strange disease with vomiting and diarrhea symptoms kills 20 in a village in Uganda. Indonesia starts testing homegrown COVID vaccine on humans. Immigration arrests 41 foreigners for illegal entry in Malawi. Libyan parliament set to name a new prime minister amid signs of power struggle. Libyan parliament is set to name a new prime minister amid signs of a power struggle whilst trying to navigate their elections. Now in Kenya, a lack of funding prevents exploitation of Lotikipi aquifer. Jonas Sandling wins gold in Beijing 2022 women's cross-country sprint. Those have been our stories.
Thank you for joining us this wonderful morning. Now, please remember that AGM is repeated on our website, channel 1 up to from 8:30 to 9:30. Please send us your email remarks regarding our program to agm_2centsworth@nmh.com.na or post on our Twitter and Facebook pages. We also welcome remarks on, we also welcome short videos or even photos of happenings in your parts of Africa, and we'll gladly include it in the segment of our program. So please start sending them. Don't forget to sanitize, wash your hands, and wear your mask, and please keep the social distance. I am Glenora Shipura.
And I am Ashwin Berry. Swera Jakanaka.